Hey guys, what's going on? It's T-Carp for the Sasquatch Awareness Project and the Scott Carpenter YouTube channel. Guys, I really appreciate you again. So thankful that, and like I said, I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving and man, Christmas is coming up. We are. Santa Claus has got to start going to the places for the kids, if you guys know what I mean. So also wanted to quickly give a shout out to some folks. Les Stroud put out something on his YouTube channel, the director's cut of where he went to go see Dad, and man, that was so kind of him to speak so highly of my dad. Man, I'm just honored and grateful. And Les, thank you. If you ever get a chance to see this, thank you. And I appreciate you. And you're always welcome back. If you want to get in contact with me, you can at tcarp1616@yahoo, or however your channels do that. We'd love to have you back out here. But I just from me, very heartfelt thank you. Just thank you. Anyway, let's get into the reading. We don't have very far to go, so let's see if we can crank through and make this a little bit longer reading. So what I want to tell you is you're not the only one. So if you've had a Bigfoot or Sasquatch experience and you're dealing with things, just know that you're not the only one. And let's get into it. You're not the only one in the past, the majority of those that had a Sasquatch encounter or an ongoing issue with the Sasquatch, and you're ridiculed and belittled by friends and family. You're not in the minority, you're in the majority of that. In some cases, marriages have been broken up and family members have disowned each other over this subject. And this is now rapidly changing thanks to the efforts of my dad's friend, Steve Isdahl. Steve told of his encounters via his How to Hunt YouTube channel. Due to Steve's honest and straightforward approach to the subject, viewers began emailing Steve about their Sasquatch encounters. A few hundred emails became over 15,000 emails. His YouTube channel went from 40,000 subscribers to over 100,000 subscribers in a matter of months. Steve has never once invited anyone to his channel or asked anyone to like and subscribe. Everyone that came to his channel came willingly via word of mouth or via internet search. And that's pretty amazing. So just remember, you're not the only one there. Steve's channel is a safe place for people to share their encounters without fear of ridicule. This has completely changed the game and is blowing the lid off the Sasquatch subject. If you are reading this book and have untold encounters you need to share, I encourage you to reach out to Steve and share your encounters. It's extremely therapeutic to get it off your chest. And it also will help and encourage others that have had encounters with the Sasquatch. For many years, those that tried to share the truth with the public were attacked, discredited, slandered, and suppressed. I unfortunately am among those that suffered this fate. Dad had to suffer this fate. I want you guys to realize and understand that, Dad took a big chance at telling his family. It's like, hey, I believe in Sasquatch. I believe in this research. And, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And coming out publicly, and not only publicly, just on YouTube, but I remember emails that he got from, the Finding Bigfoot. And he's like, man, they're just going to make me look like an idiot. And I'm like, no, it's worth telling. I've got friends now that, I was telling that Dad did the Bigfoot stuff, and they kind of laughed it off. And now it's a big deal. They talk about it, and I'm so blessed to have people coming in to where I work, and they recognize me, and we get to talk, and we get to share encounters, and I just want to tell you from the bottom of my heart, you're not crazy, and you're not alone. There's definitely, you're just you're not alone, and you know, you've got a safe place in me. I've got some encounters that I need to share with the public when it comes to people that have sent me. I've got those, and I apologize that I haven't shared them yet, and that is coming. That is coming. But for many years, you know, those that tried to share the truth were you know, discredited, attacked, and all that. After the Sasquatch DNA study was published, I stopped researching, or Dad stopped researching the Sasquatch. There was nothing left to do or to prove, to be honest. However, as time went on, I found that there was a great need out there. Thousands needed a safe place to run. I began sharing information via my YouTube channel and writing books about my very research and experiences. My reach and influence were very limited, and I'm not a full-time content provider. Dad definitely wasn't. I create videos only when I have something I think is beneficial to share, and that's what Dad did. I'm taking over, and I'm trying to create more content on a schedule basis. So I'm definitely not full-time, but I want to read these books and get this information out there for you guys in the ether. So that's what I want to do. And if you want to purchase the books, I think you can still find them on Amazon. The timing of Steve coming onto the scene was divine providence, in my opinion. Our friendship began after he shared his encounters, and I was already a subscriber, and actually I have some buddies of mine who were already subscribers too, and they're like, hey, your dad needs to get in touch with Steve. And that was before they had, and it was man, I tell you what, it was divine. It really was divine stuff. So he was already a subscriber to his YouTube channel because of my love of hunting. I emailed Steve after he asked some questions about the Sasquatch. He responded, and our friendship began. Steve brought the passion and determination that was needed to combat the Sasquatch research community, cutting through the disinformation, the egos, to help people and get honest information in the public domain. This encouraged me to get back in the fight and energized me to up my efforts to help people. And that's what this YouTube is now. Is we're here to help people. We're here to tell them they're not crazy. We're here to give them information and resources. That's what we're doing here. Cutting through the disinformation, egos, all that. So again, this is what led me to create the Sasquatch Awareness Project website and to write this book. My friend David Paulides also began doing regular YouTube videos concerning missing people and support for those who had family members who had gone missing in our public lands and parks. You need to understand that you are not the only one. You are not alone and isolated anymore. Sasquatch encounters across the country number into the hundreds of thousands. The number of people dealing with Sasquatch on or near their property regularly also numbers in the thousands. As I have mentioned in earlier chapters, I have numerous experience with Sasquatch and other cryptids, including what is considered to be the supernatural activity. Like many reading this book, I got into Bigfoot research through an encounter in the spring of 2008. I was completely ignorant of the Sasquatch and the consequences of seeking them out. I would like to share a couple of my encounters, including both my first encounter as a child, then my encounter as an adult, that led to my dad becoming a so-called Bigfoot researcher. I think many will be able to relate and will find these encounters valuable as they work through their encounters. And it will also help those who have not had an encounter to better be informed about the Sasquatch and hopefully be better prepared to handle an encounter in the rare case it happens to them. My dad's first Bigfoot experience occurred during his childhood, as and made an inevitable impression upon him throughout the years. The strange event occurred that made this haunting impression, and it occurred in the summer of 1971. And I want to, add some things to this. My mother told me, my mother and my father were divorced, so mom and dad got divorced. My mother has always been a supporter of dad, and I want to make that. She's been amazing about that. She's never laughed, never did anything. She has supported dad. She's shown up to these Bigfoot conferences, And you probably have never seen her. She's just been an amazingly quiet supporter. She was there when Dad passed away. She was holding his hand. I have nothing but love and respect for my mother, and relationship with Dad that she was able to foster after their divorce. It was incredible. It was divine providence from God. Anyway, I say all that to say that my mom told me these stories before Dad ever told me. Dad would wake up having nightmares talking about the two demons that pushed their face up against that, and it's hard because you can't come to grips with it. You don't know what's going on. So Dad, this was a big deal for Dad for a long time before he kind of figured out what was going on in 2008. So this is his first encounter, and I just want you to know that this isn't just Dad pulling this out of his rear end. This has been a big deal for a long time with Dad. All right. So it had happened in the summer of 1971, living on a dead-end road in rural East Tennessee. Dad was 8 years old when the encounter occurred. Dad was with Papaw, Papaw worked late night shifts for KUB, and my Dad's younger siblings, Aunt Tracy and Uncle Doug, were in bed. Only Mamaw and my dad were up, and they were in the den. The news I'm going to read this from his point of view, by the way. The news broadcast had ended, making the time approximately 11:30 p.m. Standing up, my mother informed me that she was going to take the garbage out before we went to bed. Located at the back of the lot, approximately 75 feet from the house, the garbage cans during that time period were made from 50-gallon metal drums, and Mama and Papa still had those. Going out the back door with the garbage, my mother left me in the house, sitting on the couch. The back door was left open, allowing me to see the back porch through the glass screen door that they had. Immediately after my mother walked off the porch, two small hairy creatures ran onto the porch, placing their faces against the glass door. These two creatures looked directly at me. Heart pounding, frightened, unable to move, I made eye contact with the larger of the two creatures. After a few moments of sheer terror, the creatures both smiled, causing my fear to subside. Their bodies resembled orangutans, but their faces were human in appearance. Their skin was gray, with black eyes and noses that were human-looking, with wide nostrils. A loud clang rang out as my mother placed the lid back on the garbage barrel. Startled, the two creatures turned their heads toward the sound, both looking in my mother's directions. They turned, then ran off the back porch with their hands still held above their heads. Below is a witness sketch that was created by Sylvia Irwin of the two juvenile Sasquatch looking at me through the screen door. I'm going to show you guys that real quick, if you can see that. So oh my goodness. I just remember all this stuff, Dad talking about all this. Arriving back at the house, my mother entered the door complaining, "There is a skunk in the field. It smells horrible outside." Still shaken, I asked her, "Did you see those monkeys that were on the back porch?" Giving me an odd look, my mother said nothing. This prompted me to begin insisting that I observed two little monkeys looking at me through the screen door. She quickly dismissed the event, blaming the incident on our neighborhood's children. The neighbors, children, buddies making jokes or trying to screw around, stuff like that. She insisted they were playing a prank on me, but I knew it was not my neighbors. Being obvious, my mother did not believe what I was saying. I decided to drop the subject and go to bed. The creature's dark eyes, along with how they smiled, are the details I can still vividly remember. They had straight white teeth, wide mouths, and thin lips. The larger one approximately 4.5 feet tall. The smaller one was approximately 4 feet tall. Nightmares of this encounter plagued me for many years. until a chance view of a Bigfoot documentary on TV. Sketches of a mother and an infant Bigfoot were shown during the documentary. This caused the realization that these creatures were infant Bigfoot. After this realization, the nightmares finally ceased. And like I said, I remember my mother talking about these nightmares to me. Like they were that big of an impact on Dad that, you know, it was wild. The Unseen Creature, June 2009. Watching Bigfoot videos during my lunch hours rekindled curiosity concerning Bigfoot. Researching the subject, I found several accounts that claimed the Bigfoot would sometimes make what is known as a whoop call. Visiting Bigfoot research websites that contain alleged recordings of the whoop call, I said to myself, next time I go out in the woods, I might try to imitate this call to see what might occur. I did not think I would ever receive a response. But what the heck? Never hurts to try. On Saturday, June 27th, 2009, I went fishing on a lake that surrounded a 1,500-acre wilderness recreation area. And this area is where my father is buried today. Before making my first cast, I made 5 or 6 whoop calls, doing my best to imitate the calls that I had heard on alleged Bigfoot sound recordings. The calls were not impressive. But with my last one, I had it sounding decent. After finishing the calls, I felt a little silly, hoping there was no one else on the lake that heard me. Reaching down, I picked up my fishing rod and began to cast a topwater lure toward the point. After making 3 or 4 casts, something suddenly came crashing loudly through the woods toward the water's edge. Shocked, I froze in mid-retreat, looking into the woods for what was making these sounds. In unbelief, I listened as heavy footfalls thundered in heavy underbrush. Accompanying the footfalls, the occasional loud snaps or breaking limbs could be heard. This was no small forest animal, deer, or rider on horseback. The point of land was overgrown with briars, honeysuckle, choking underbrush containing no trails of any kind. Below is the area where I heard the crashing noises and the vocalizations. And that is the point of land that you can see. I'll try to provide pictures for this, kind of overlay. Focusing my attention on the shoreline, my eyes caught a slight movement in the dark shadows. Unfortunately, the denseness of the undergrowth hid the identity of the source of the commotion. Suddenly, there was complete silence for a few moments. Then sounds resembled bipedal walking began imitating from the shorelines as if the unseen subject was looking for something. Low, deep sounds accompanied the bipedal walking sounds as the unseen subject continued to walk along the shorelines. This activity continued for approximately 2 minutes, when without warning the unseen subject stomped, paused, muttered, uttered, and one last then proceeded to walk slowly away toward the interior of the area. The thump of the heart, was all I could hear as I stood in complete disbelief. Assuredly, this was not a coincidence. What animal in this area would react to a whoop call in this manner? Being extremely troubled by the events that had just transpired, I needed a few minutes to regain my composure. Resuming my fishing, questions kept popping into my head. Was that a Bigfoot? No, it couldn't be. What else could it be then? These thoughts occupied my mind the remainder of the day as I dwelt on what could have made the commotion. Unsure of what I had encountered, it had become evident that I needed to investigate this area. Desiring answers, I planned to take my camera, visit the area, researching to hopefully discover what or who had made these strange noises. Motivated by a strong desire to find footprints or uncover evidence, I would return to the area a short time later. The events that occurred on this return trip, along with the whoop call response, would begin my journey into the Bigfoot phenomenon as an amateur Bigfoot researcher. It can happen to anyone. I was contacted by an orthopedic surgeon out of the blue. I first received a text from the surgeon asking if I would be willing to talk with them about their encounter. The person said they were given my number by someone familiar with my research. In that initial text, the person identified themselves as doctor and that they were desperate to talk to someone about their Bigfoot experience. I wondered how this person obtained my number from a person familiar with my research. By this time, in my research, a circle of friends had grown to people in my local area and across the country. It could have been one of a dozen acquaintances that gave this person my phone number. I usually do not take phone calls from people I do not know unless they were referred to me by a friend. However, since the person obtained my number from someone I knew and my gut told me I should talk to this person, I told the person to call. The person identified themselves as an orthopedic surgeon from the area. I recognized the name. The person was well known and had a reputation of being one of the best in the area. They thanked me several times for taking their call, and they had an experience just a couple months ago. And they were having an extremely difficult time dealing with the experience, being extremely agitated about the events that took place. I assured the person that they were not crazy and that the Sasquatch are real, living, breathing creatures. And I then asked the person to tell me what happened. The following is the best recollection of what the surgeon told me. I often exercise in the Smokies, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and I was moving quickly down the trail as I hike often. I came up on a small rise in the trail with a small stream at the bottom of the other side. When I topped the rise, I was stopped in my tracks by the sight of a huge thing squatted down beside the small creek that crossed the trail. It was using its hands to scoop up the water and take a drink. I was in shock. I could not believe what I was seeing. It had to know I was standing there looking at it, but it did not look up at me. It was just continued to drink water. Then it slowly stood up and turned and looked directly at me. It was huge. I was only 15 to 20 feet away from it. This thing had to be 8 to 10 feet tall. It was gigantic. My mind tried to make sense of what I was seeing. I noticed it was breathing. I could see flies or gnats flying around it. The skin was black. I could see the skin under the hair. The hair was black. It was heavily muscled and very thick. The eyes were black and almost very little sclera. My mind told me this was not real, but I knew that what my eyes were seeing. I was looking at a living thing. We looked at each other for what felt like 10 minutes, but I know it was not that long, maybe 30 to 60 seconds. It gave me an annoyed look. It gave me the impression that I had disturbed it. Then it turned to my right and slowly walked into the thick underbrush. I watched it as it turned, and my training kicked in. I saw the muscles move. I identified the muscle groups in my mind as it turned and stepped away. I knew this thing was real. I could not deny what I was seeing. As crazy as it sounds that there are hairy giants in the mountains, my logical mind told me it was real. I have struggled for weeks trying to figure out what I saw, and I'm having trouble sleeping and coping with this. I cannot tell anyone, not my family, not my friends, or anyone. If word gets out about this, I fear it would destroy my profession and my professional reputation. It could cost me. It could even cost me more. I just do not know. What I have to know, what I need someone to tell me is, are they real? I need to know someone else has seen them, that I am not the only one. Are they real? I just need to hear it from someone who has seen them. I assured the surgeon that they were not crazy or losing their mind. I also made sure that they understood that these creatures are real, and I'd seen them on more than one occasion. I also assured the person that thousands of people across the country have had encounters with the Sasquatch from all walks of life. I told them that they were not alone and that I understood how isolated he felt. The person then calmed down. I could tell by the sound of their voice they were relieved to hear me confirm that what they had encountered. We continued the conversation for at least 30 minutes. I told the person about the encounters I have had and about my research. I told them about the DNA study, what we found out concerning the DNA and the Sasquatch had been a human hybrid, and they were very interested in this, and I gave them links to this information. By the time the conversation had ended, I felt this person was okay now. They thanked me over and over, and I asked them if I could share their encounter, and they said yes, but to keep their identity confidential. They were concerned about what could happen if they were identified as having a Sasquatch encounter. The authorities know. Okay? The authorities know. I am asked over and over, does the government know Sasquatch exist? The answer is a definite yes. Many federal agencies have been aware of the existence of Sasquatch and the other cryptids for well over 50 years. State agencies are also aware of the existence of Sasquatch. I know this because a woman that approached me after a conference held in Gatlinburg, Tennessee in the fall of 2019. The conference was over and we were wrapping things up, talking to friends, and when a man walked up and pointed at me to a woman and her teenage daughter. The woman told me that she had been trying to find me for almost 2 years. She said the TWRA, or Tennessee Wildlife Recreation Agency officer, had recommended she contact me. The woman had my attention, and I asked her to please tell me why she was referred to me. Here is the encounter to the best of my recollection. We have a home and land near the airport in Alcoa, Tennessee. My husband made me a running trail around 40 acres. I run across the country, races, and I used to run this trail. I was running the trail and rounded a blind corner and started up the hill. My property is wooded, and the property next to ours is an open field with a fence separating the two properties. When I rounded the corner, about 15 feet in front of me was a large creature, and that looked like a werewolf, standing in the middle of the trail, watching a jet plane take off from the nearby airport. I was stunned. I could not believe what I was seeing. I was so scared I could not move. The jet was loud, and this thing had not notified me. When the jet went out of range, had not noticed her. When the jet was out of range, the werewolf thing turned its head and looked right at me, like it was surprised. It looked at me for a few seconds and then turned and jumped over the fence and way out into the field. I mean 30 to 40 feet. It was crazy. The thing just jumped from a standing position. It squatted down and jumped. I could not believe what I had just witnessed. Once it landed, the thing ran across the field and it landed adjacent to a woodlot and just disappeared. This thing was huge, 9 to 10 feet tall. It had a head like a werewolf, but ears were on the side of its head. It was jet black and looked like the traditional werewolf you see in movies. Its arms were like man arms, but the hands had claws, and it looked like a raccoon's hands. The chest was barrel-shaped. The legs looked like dog legs, but the foot was long, not like a dog's paw. I ran back home, immediately called the wildlife people, the TWRA. I told the officer what had happened and that they needed to do something. I saw this thing near a neighborhood with kids and pets. This thing is dangerous, and it does not need to be around our homes. The officer was polite, but he said there was nothing he could do. The officer said, quote, "This was not the sort of thing that they were equipped to handle," and rushed me off the phone. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. So I called back and got another officer on the line. I expected everything that happened again and told him I did not want the runaround this time. I told him I felt we were in danger and wanted someone to come out and get rid of the daggum thing for good. The officer told me that this would have been a Bigfoot encounter that he had, the officer told me, that if it would have been a Bigfoot encounter, that he had the name of some local groups they can refer to, but they are not equipped to handle a dogman creature. Then he said, "There's a guy that might be able to help you. Look up a man by the name of Scott Carpenter. He has had experience with them before." I was stunned. This was an admission by an official state agency, the Tennessee Wildlife Recreation Agency, that they had groups that they referred people to if they had a Sasquatch encounter. And more amazingly is that they recommended my dad by name. This officer had undoubtedly watched my YouTube videos concerning the dog man and felt comfortable enough to recommend me to someone for some help. This is a fact-based example that the state government in Tennessee knows about these creatures. I do not think it is much of a stretch to say that Tennessee is not the only state that is aware of the existence of Sasquatch. A witness sketch of the dog man by Sylvia Irwin. This is one of some of the creatures that Dad had captured on video. So this is an eyewitness sketch of it. That's the Sylvia one. Again, I'll put that in the link, or I'll put that up as I'm reading. So that's the sketch of that, and that happened. That's miles from there. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and give some closing thoughts. So, all right. In my sincere hope that the reader has been given useful and constructive information in this book, my prayers go out to all those who have had an encounter, to the friends and family members of the witnesses. As my friend Steve Isdahl is fond of saying, welcome to the club of no return. I encourage those who have had an encounter to continue living your lives without fear. Go hiking, hunting, fishing, camping. There is hope and people who are here and willing to help you each step of the way. Do not let your encounter rob you of the joy of the outdoors. No, things will never be normal again. You have encountered something that will change a person forever. However, you can move forward and continue your life. I have, and so have thousands of others, one step at a time, one day at a time. There are resources that exist, and I'll list many of them in the next chapter. Please take advantage of these resources. My goal is to bring this subject to the mainstream, to educate and inform the public. I think everyone should have the right to know what exists in the parks, lands, and wilderness areas. This will give everyone the information needed to make an informed decision before engaging in outdoor activity in or near an area where Sasquatch are known to frequent or have recently been sighted. Be informed, be safe, and God bless. And guys, thank you so much for letting me read this entire book to you. I'm so grateful. Here are the resources. Dave Paulides' websites, the Can-Am, and I will post all them stuff. So guys, I'm just so grateful for you. And hopefully I've honored my dad by reading this. The next one we're going to get into is the DNA study. This is hardcore evidence for the proof of Sasquatch, that not only DNA, but it's going to be hardcore proof that, as we know, if you're not a part of the scientific club, let's say, they're going to deny the truth. And we're going to talk all about that in my dad's stuff in the next book that we're reading, and I can't wait to get into that with you guys. Again, I know this was longer. Wanted to just tell you guys, so thank you so much. Again, for the Sasquatch Awareness Project, my name is Travis, or T-Carp, and guys, like Dad says, stay informed, stay safe, and God bless.